Okay, hi guys, we're starting. So welcome new members. We've got Lindsay, Ganong, Amy, you are starting your new term on the Conservation Board. Danielle, you and I are halfway through ours. So we have a new Conservation Board. And we've got a couple members of the public called in just to attend the meeting. So thank y'all for being here. We really appreciate public participation. So the agenda today is an introduction of new board members to the board process and rules. I'm going to try to keep that as quick as possible, but definitely Lindsay, just ask questions as we go, especially if, and Danielle, you and Amy, you all do this all the time, but if there's something we need to change, of course, just speak up on it. Then I wanted to review quickly the draft that I put together, the annual report to the commission, because we owe them one. And I like that. I thought that was really fitting because then it can kind of update our new board members on what we what we just did. And then I'd like to do officer elections. So we get to figure that out. We got to have at least a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary, I think. I'm sorry, I should have known that ahead of time.
I think I looked it up. I think you have to have the chair and the vice chair, and then we decide if we want a secretary or not.
Right. Yeah. We may choose to elect a secretary. So start thinking about that when we get to that part. And then we have whatever time we have left and however much we choose to flush it out as a group, we've got our upcoming agenda discussion and plan. We really need to know what our next few meetings are going to be. And if for bonus points, if we want to plan out the rest of our year, y'all have passion around that. Let's do it.
That sounds optimistic.
I agree. Any public comment before we get started on our agenda? Okay, then let's talk about board process and rules. Yay. So the first is we've got, this is just resources. So I think, as you probably know, we have a YouTube channel. We've got the groups.io message board, which I think, Lindsay, you're probably on that now, right? Are you getting those messages? I'll check on that then, and then it'll be an invite. So the focus of that, the major things that we have to pay attention to as board members is Robert's rules during our meetings, which is in the board member handbook that I sent a link to, and I'm happy to show on the screen now. But it's just a way of running board meetings that I'm sure you're well familiar with. We're pretty loose on Robert's rules unless we have a something very specific. We try, if it looks like we need to have a more structured conversation, we're pretty adept at jumping right into that. Sunshine laws are really important. So the bullet points are 3 members. Since we only have 5 board members right now, 3 members or more is a quorum. Anytime we have 3 members or more together, they cannot be discussing anything conservation board related without public notice and without recording the meeting. There's no wiggle room there. The quorum will be 4 if we get a youth member. So there is in our bylaws, and it's right now it's vacant, but we have a special board position that's reserved just for a youth member. And I think the ages are 14 to 18 or something, 15 to 18, 15 to 19. And so then a quorum is 4. That becomes really important, especially if we start forming subcommittees and going off and trying to like do things. We normally, if there's 5 of us, we can't have a team more than 2, or we end up needing to do public notice anytime we are deliberate talking about board related matters outside of the meeting. So it's a little clunky, but it's definitely in compliance with sunshine laws, which means that the public needs to be able to participate in any kind of deliberation during the deliberative process, which leads to the next thing, which is we do have a Google Drive and all the files on the Google Drive are public folder, but crucially, you cannot use Google collaboration features in any meaningful way. What I mean by that is if we have a Google Doc and we start adding comments and saying, I'll edit this and oh yeah, scratch this and do that thing, you know, the thing that's really efficient that we probably all do in our day jobs and everything else, that violates sunshine laws because it constitutes deliberation because it's a back and forth about substantive policy. So the way we get around that is we still use the Google Drive, but if we have any feedback for each other, you save a copy of it with your comments, and then we submit, and it's only your comments, and then we submit those together and we bring them up and talk about them during a meeting. So you got to be real careful not to just respond to people's input outside of meetings, which is, it's clunky at first, but you get used to it. You can reply to any items that are administrative though. And please do, you know, when we have members of the public write into the conservation board message board, for example, we always try to reply. We just can't reply very substantively. Usually it's, oh yeah, sounds great. We'll talk about that at whatever point. Oh, here, Alexis is joining. Hi, Alexis.
Hold on. Hi, sorry, I fully thought it was at 5:30.
Oh, no problem. Well, it's good to see you. We just got started. We started recording. But I'll actually back up and let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, my name's Alexis. Let's see. I currently work for the health department, so I'm very, very stressed right now, and have been for the past couple months. But before that, I worked for, I was a AmeriCorps Energy Corps member working in Park County. And so that's sort of how I got introduced to the Conservation Board. And I did a greenhouse gas analysis and audit of the city of Livingston and Park County government operations. So if you're ever referred to that, that was what my project was. But yeah, so I'm actually right in the city county building right now because we just got done working. So that's a bit about me.
Recognize the parents. And Alexis, so we've got, so Amy, I think you've met Amy, Danielle, myself, and you haven't met Lindsay though, is that true? Have y'all met? Okay, we'll do a little, get to know you after the meeting then. Alexis, what I was just we're going through the agenda and we're just going through the board process and rules. So this is just annoying stuff, but it's kind of it's just the way things work and we have to make sure. But I reviewed Robert's rules. We talked about what sunshine laws are and why. So crucially, 3 members is a quorum. So anytime we have more than 3 members talking about something, let's we have to put public notice and record it. So let's try not to do anything that involves deliberation around substantive matters outside of this, if it's 3 or more people, until we have a youth member, and then we can have 4 as a quorum. And then we're talking about public comment next. So we need to be respectful at all times. This is important. We really invite public comment at all points. There's a lot of good reasons for it. One, that's our job as an advisory committee, but also it helps get public input incorporated into the things that we're working on as soon as possible, so that we can present things that are workable to the commission. Most topics that we cover require a public comment period, and especially if there is a resolution. So there will just be lots of solicitations during our meetings, and if it's something that we think is going to have a particular impact on somebody else in the community, we'll try to reach out to them and ask them for feedback. And we don't have to respond to all the public comment, but we just want to make sure that we communicate that people have been heard. It's important to do our best to distill things down. Our job as an advisory board is, one, to take our expertise, and also to listen and compile what we think the will of the public is, and deliver that to the commission. That's all I had on board process and rules. Amy, Danielle, did I miss anything?
I still don't understand it all. So I would just say, when in doubt, ask if what you're doing follows the rules. That's what I do.
I wanted to talk, I would like to talk about what we have learned the hard way over the last year, and I even made a slide. So let me share that real quick. All right. So we learned this kind of the hard way, Alexis and Lindsay, this year, and I just wanted to capture this. This is what Amy was referring to before we started the call. So the big questions that I think is, how do we use advisory boards effectively in this city? How do we make sure that we have high quality board members? And then how do we communicate that process? And the process piece was, in particular, the thing that really hung us up last year. And that, I feel like that was really, a lot of it was my fault, because I just didn't know what I was doing. And we know a lot better now, and we're much better sync with the city. But this is kind of fun. I thought, to point out sort of what a typical board member profile is. It seems to be the case. You kind of typically motivated to be part of the community, as I think a lot of us articulated. High expertise elders is one sort of category, and then another category seems to be busy professionals or parents. And there are others, but I was trying to bucket this and characterize it so that we kind of know where this is, where we're all coming from. I definitely identify with busy professional and parent, personally. So I think our focus for this year should definitely be to honor our time as well as we can, and just be as effective as we can. So this was the thing I wanted to review. Actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna skip that and we're gonna get to the meat, which is this process. Because I think this is what we figured out with Dark Sky. This is sort of the process for updating a municipal code. The key piece to this is, so the commission asks us to do something. We compile expert recommendations and initial public input, and then we make recommendations to the commission. But key is the recommendations they're like general recommendations. They can be specific if we think they're very impactful, but we don't go and do what I think we started to last year, which was wrong, and rewrite the dark sky ordinance. We learned a lot doing that, but we burned some time, and what we really need to be doing is just making whatever recommendations we need, and then make a suggestion on what the process should be to get those recommendations implemented either in city code or in whatever we're trying to do. Typically, that means that we lean on city staff to do the actual work. And then that city staff brings their work back to us. And specifically, we ask the commission to direct city staff. And then they bring that work back to us. We review it, and we either recommend or don't recommend it to the commission or ask for revision. And then ultimately we make a recommendation to the commission on what to do. So on any given issue, we'll typically, if it's like a municipal code update, we'll typically see it twice. But what that also means is we don't have to be, it's an acknowledgement that we're all volunteers. We're going to provide the input that we can, given the time that we have, and nothing else. We're not doing the work for the city because we're also not the appropriate ones to do it. We don't know all federal, state, and local law. So I thought this would be a good one to start our January year with, because this was a hard-earned lesson. And I think it'll make us feel a little bit more nimble and successful this year. Any thoughts or questions, or should we move on?
I'm glad you brought this up because it really waylaid the whole purpose of what we were trying to do. So
Yeah.
I think Alexis was brought in a little bit on it. But yeah, we need to just be making recommendations and not rewriting code, which turned into a nightmare for everyone. Kind of like bogged the whole group down until we figured out, no, we just need to make some recommendations and bring Matt in too. Not Matt Thompson, but the other Matt.
Yeah. Actually, I'd love to, I can definitely, on the record, give him credit for helping kind of right the ship on that. I think, and I think it's hard. There's been, kind of, I'll say intermittent engagement between the city and the city boards. City staff and city boards over the years, and it's created sometimes a very inconsistent message to the board members who are trying to make an effect on things, on whether they can count on the city for help or not, frankly. And that's not something, that's not an accusation. It's a thing it's a feature of some of that interaction that just comes from not having a lot of people and being in a small town. Just is what it is. But this is the process we're going to follow this year. I hope, I suggest. So, cool. Thanks for letting me.
Muted because I have to mute myself because of this, the music. But yeah, please let me know if I'm talking and it's muted. I don't want to have you guys listen to this background music.
Okay, so let's switch then quickly to the letter. And I like this, Alexis and Lindsay, because it kind of gives you an idea of what we've done this year. And I just thought of something I totally did not put in there, so I'm excited.
Is
To
this
hear you.
annual report, is this required or is this like just courtesy or?
It's required, actually,
Okay.
per our. Let's see, one of the clauses per the city board bylaws, and actually all the other boards have already done their annual reports, but I thought this would be fun, and I think those are written just by the chairs. But I thought this would be fun because we could send it as a board if we wanted to pass it as a resolution, and then we could kind of sign it, all of us, instead of just me. And it also it was just a very, frankly, convenient way to introduce Alexis and Lindsay to what we did last year, which is, you know, a shorter list than I'd hoped, honestly.
Well, you missed one.
I did.
We sent the requirements for or recommendations for the growth policy. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we did that before everything else, if I recall. So I'd say like we provided extensive input to the city growth policy in conservation topics, I'd say. Does that sound appropriate? So yeah, the big four that we did were, we launched the board, we did that growth policy input, which I think we had 2 rounds of that. So that did consume probably 4 months of our time when it was all said and done. We had, you know, the laundry list of things that we're trying to do to proactively engage with the public. And then we did our night sky protection Act recommendations, changes. So that's it. Those are the only 4 things we did last year, really. Wish we'd done more, but we can do more this year. We've got, I don't need to read every word, but I just put the headings under here: communication outreach initiatives. Probably need to put before this that we did growth policy input, and I just say maybe highlight input round 1, and then even I think we had input round 2, right? We did 2 rounds.
Did we?
Yeah, we had our initial set of recommendations that we did on the growth policy before they came out with the draft, and then we had
okay.
the draft.
Okay.
So that would be.
Is the best place to take a look at those in a topics folder or like meeting minutes?
A good question.
Yeah, it'd be under topics, under
Other. Yeah.
other.
Growth policy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and you asked about the dark sky one, so that's under lighting. And then I'm pretty sure it's the commission submittal dark sky ordinance. That was the final submittal on that. But maybe we could clean up the folders a little bit.
I know, I started doing that. Yeah, Lindsay, they're a mess.
I understand. Like no.
Topics, under topics, if you go to other, I should have just promoted growth policy out of other. But under other is growth policy, and then you can see what we submitted. We have, the first one was from approved by resolution on the 29th of April last year, and it was our policy, our input, and really our assessment of what we saw out of the Burton survey. And then finally, we had the feedback from November 19th, which would have been the draft feedback. So those are the two that we did. And I'm actually going to make a copy of those and put them in the to city commission folder, because those are all the things that we've delivered to the city commission. So, so I can put the links to those in here and put a comment or two. We've got the communication outreach initiatives, Zoom meetings, YouTube, message board, public Google Drive. And I did add this in here because people ask this all the time. I've had specific discussions with commissioners on how we are not allowed to use the collaborative editing feature of Google Drive. It's just not something we should be doing. Night Sky Protection Act. So through several public hearings and outside research, we determined many common sense ways to update the night sky protection section of our municipal code as requested by the commission. These recommendations and a recommended process for updating the municipal code has been delivered to city staff and will be considered by the city commission in a meeting soon. And I actually don't have an update on that. I don't know when that meeting is going to happen. I'm sorry. And then I put a link to the recommendations. And then I alphabetized our names, and I didn't put any officer labels here. I'm just gonna point that out. Any feedback on this letter? This will go to the commission. No. Does anybody want to offer a motion to adopt this letter and allow me to send it to the commission signed by us with updates to these two links?
Yeah, I motion we send the letter to the city commission.
All right, so we got a motion.
I'll second that.
Seconded. Any public comment? Okay, no public comment that I can hear. Going once, going twice. Okay.
Don't we have to vote?
Let's vote. Amy?
What? Aye.
Danielle?
Aye. Now there's a bunch of little kids around there, I'm sorry. I agree. Vote yes.
Alexis?
Aye.
Lindsay?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. I'll add the links, update the titles when we know, and send it on the way. Hey, we got our first thing done this year already.
Woo.
Okay. Officer elections. So this one's more free form. We'll need some motions to do officer roles. I'll just start off with I am happy to give up chair. but I'm also I'd be fine with doing chair a little longer if you want me to. But I really don't feel any need to be in that role. But I also am happy to do it. But I do think we need, no matter what we do for officer the officer thing is really just about running the meetings. It's chair and co-chair at least, and identifying roles and responsibilities like meeting minutes and that sort of thing. But I think moving forward, it'd be really nice to start assigning, different things that we do, say like climate action plan, for example, have somebody be like the lead on that or something like that. And that person does not need to be the chair. I actually think it shouldn't be the chair for work balancing purposes.
Okay, I was gonna say that you've done a lot more than what you just said the chair was. And I mean, I think you've done a really great job, but I understand that's, yeah, last year was a lot of work. And maybe we can do better to like do what you say, kind of distribute evenly.
Does anybody want to be chair? Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah.
I personally don't feel like I understand it well enough to like be in that role. Like I'm not ready to be in that role. If that's how I feel right now about it.
All right, well, if I'm chair, this is going to come up in 6 months again, I promise. Just FYI.
Sure. So I nominate Michael to chair. Is that how we do it?
All right, so we've got a motion from Amy that I be chair, and a seconded from Danielle, I think. Is that what I heard?
Lindsay. It was Lindsay.
Lindsay.
It was Lindsay.
All right, seconded from Lindsay. All in favor? Say it.
Aye.
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 Aye, okay, and I'll say aye, okay. All right.
I wanted to, I'll say I wanted to nominate myself for secretary. I was reading the book, this handy book. What is it? City of Livingston Board and Committee Policies. And I think maybe I could take some of the weight off of you, Michael. And also, I'm not sure that we have been doing all of it on a timely basis.
We have not.
I like to organize the crap out of stuff. So I think I could take that on with the understanding of like what Michael said, like a better work balance, like maybe taking on less of some of the other stuff so that I can make sure that we stay on track with this kind of stuff. So can I nominate myself? I can, right?
Yeah, you can make a motion for yourself, sure. But I'll make the motion. I make a motion that Amy be secretary.
I'll second it.
All right, Alexis seconds. So we've got a motion and a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
I see an aye from Danielle, an aye from Lindsay, an aye from Alexis.
Aye.
Amy?
Oh, aye.
And I say aye. All right.
One of those weird times when you're voting for yourself. That's
Yeah.
probably something we should talk about.
Oh yeah. I'm very proud of our group.
Looks like we lost.
I don't know if we lost Lindsay. I think she's probably just.
Oh, there she is.
So let's see. So let me just write that down because I gotta write down here first and seconds. And then, okay. Now we need somebody to be vice chair.
I would be happy to be vice chair and help you out, Michael. nominate myself as vice chair.
Does
Does anyone else want it?
anybody else want it before we
We
have
lost Lindsay again, though. But
Well,
yeah,
She's one nodding her head no.
shaking heads from Lindsay and Alexis? Okay. Uh,
I'll motion that Danielle's vice chair.
I'll second it again.
all right. All in. Let's see. Amy,
Aye.
Lindsay,
Hi.
Alexis,
Aye.
Danielle.
Hi. Do I vote? I don't think I vote for myself this round.
I did.
You can. And I vote yes. So that passes. And I'm sorry, Matt just kind of poked his head in there for a second, and I just realized I should have been asking for public comment after each of the motions.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on another call. It went way too long, but it kind of
Yeah,
fell
that's
off.
okay. Did you have any public? I needed to solicit for public comment on the motions to be officers on the board.
Oh,
So as long as nobody in public has any comments, then we're still safe, and we don't have to go.
I'm just kind of listening and learning, so appreciate the noticing of the public commentary there.
You bet, Matt. Thanks. Cheers. Okay, so we've got our officers.
That was a lot easier than last time.
well, we're starting from scratch. I feel like that made it hard.
We're a
Yeah.
well-oiled machine. We've already been through all of our norming and storming. And all of our group dynamics.
That is true. We got through our awkward series. It's like our awkward teen years.
I think we're still in that. Like, what are we doing?
True. All right. Well, now we're in the fun part. So I want to just let's talk through our upcoming agenda. Does anybody else want to talk about anything else and on the agenda that I didn't even ask? Are there any other agenda items that we need to pop in there besides the
Are we
agenda?
planning on doing anything today regarding our schedule, or is that next week?
Yeah, right now, actually.
Okay, that's all we need to really talk about is the next thing we're going to talk about.
Hashtag board live. Welcome to the meta world.
Oh,
All right. So, do y'all see two documents up on the screen?
Yes.
I did it right. Okay, so I went ahead and created a little thing. Now we don't have to do the whole thing, right? But early on, we had created a list of it's our project list and priorities for the year. I did a save as, that was our 2020. This is our 2021. As we discussed, as I said, with my head held low in shame, we didn't get to all the topics that we wanted to last year, for various reasons. But I'd like to I went ahead and left the priority list up here because I thought we could talk through that. I probably should just blow away this. That content. And then I just listed all the meeting dates that we have for the rest of the year. So we're kind of a blank slate. I mean, I could have filled this out, but I just wanted to have a discussion about, the only thing we really have to determine today is really kind of what the next probably 2 meetings are and what we want to tackle. And then the rest of it can be a little bit more fluid. So maybe to kick that off, what I'll say is we had so growth policy stuff we did. And dark sky, we pushed that as far as we can. At some point, the city will come back, but that timeline doesn't depend on us anymore. That's out of our bucket. So here are some of the things that we had for last year. I'm kind of actively deleting the ones that are irrelevant or that we've accomplished already. But these are some of the things that we've been asked to do by various entities, which is, we've got the climate action plan, energy climate action plan framework, and then the actual plan. And the reason these are articulated differently is the city, I think it would really behoove us to not sit in a hole for 10 months working on a climate action plan, show up and present it to the city, and then have them go, why haven't you checked in on this with us already? So the idea then would be to put together, this is our plan, climate action plan, present it to the city. Are you okay with this? What kind of things would you like to see in this? Maybe ask them some specific questions that we come up with, right? And then go back and do that.
Have we gotten any direction from the city about this yet?
None.
Okay.
Well, actually, that's incorrect. That is incorrect. So if you go to let me share this thing. So we've got input from the city commission. Yeah, this was part of the strategic plan. God, this was back at the beginning of last year. So I haven't checked I apologize. I haven't checked this, so let me share this. I haven't checked the, did that work? Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. I haven't checked the strategic plan. I don't think they've changed much in this though. They had several things in the strategic plan that were related to the conservation board. And these are the section numbers from that date. But there is interest in electric vehicle infrastructure, a green waste strategy, energy savings fund, and a 3 to 5 year energy improvements budget, and developing that. And so it's possible that the climate action plan would involve those types of projects, or their projects could stand on their own. We are kind of in a chicken or egg situation with the climate action plan. We know that the growth policy has a strong section on climate action. And so we could kind of, as a team, we could go about this a couple of ways. We could say appoint someone now that could go and say, okay, you're gonna be in charge of going and researching climate action plans for a couple of months, and in the meantime we can get into maybe the specifics of more of the meat and potatoes stuff that we know would be part of one, and sort of treat it as a separate project. The advantage to that approach is it doesn't wait on the dependency, tree, where we have to wait for the growth policy to justify doing a climate action plan, to justify doing an EV, a look at the EV regulations in the city. if we wait for all that, it'll be next year before we start looking at EVs. So anyway, I'm just gonna, so we could start with climate action plan. We could have a meeting next month where we get into this a little bit and then we don't look at it for a couple months while we're doing some work on the side. We could actually try to really get into the climate action plan and try to move that to the point where we can present it to the commission. I don't know. I'm looking for input.
I might offer some suggestions. Michael, I've gotten the opportunity to work with quite a few different cities as they've worked on their climate plans. And I'm curious, do you have a sponsor within the city government that's going to have some portion of their job assigned to supporting the climate action plan?
Not predetermined.
So that would be the first challenge, I would say. I mean, putting together a climate action plan is a pretty significant undertaking and would be a big effort for a volunteer, citizen conservation board to undertake. Most of the other cities that I've worked in the state have had, at a minimum, an Energy Corps member. And unfortunately, that program is defunct now. They lost their federal funding. Or they've had at least a half-time FTE, city planner type person that is also the sustainability planner manager person. And they're working on putting together the greenhouse gas inventory and all the things that kind of go into baseline the climate action plan. So that would be maybe where I would start, is what kind of support the city is going to put behind this, because as a volunteer organization, I would just think you might be limited on how far you can take it from how much time you guys can volunteer to the effort.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. I think that's really sage. I mean, that's really in line with our understanding of kind of our new process as a board too. Our Night Sky Protection Act revisions. We were trying to edit city code, and that's just not appropriate. That was a waste of our time in some ways, and we spent it. And now, so from that, we've generated a new process of doing things. So I think it's important to say this energy action plan or climate action plan would absolutely need to fit into our new board process that we reviewed earlier, which is we make a recommendation to the city on how to resource doing the climate action plan.
Right.
And then we provide input to that plan and dialogue and act as the advisory board feeding that plan. Absolutely, yes.
That's how I've seen it work successfully in the past. And then the next little tidbit I would just offer, and then I've told you everything I know about this, is once you get kind of in that discovery phase where you look at your baseline greenhouse gas emissions and you kind of map some of your goals to the growth plan, around EVs or whatever other goals you have there, energy conservation, renewables, what have you. The next thing would be they need to make budget appropriations for pursuing those things in the future. Otherwise, going beyond that to start researching those particular solutions could just be, a bit of a boondoggle if they are not committing, if the city's not committing funds to go pursue those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that comment on process for that as well. And I think that and we shouldn't get too much into the meat and potatoes of the plan itself or even the plan, but in terms of when we're going to talk about it, I think that comment is really relevant because it allows us to decide, do y'all want to tackle this next month? Do you want to have a hearing next month where we get together? It can be a working meeting even, where we sort of lay out how we think this process is going to go. We can talk through the process as a team, and then maybe identify what we need, either both as roles on the board and as well as start forming something around what we're going to ask the city for. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if we need to get some direction from the city first. Like if someone could talk to us about what they need us to do before we do anything. Like,
Yeah.
do they just want recommendations on what we think should go into this plan, or I don't know. It just seems like such a huge thing. And then what Matt just said makes a lot of sense. That I don't really know where we'd start with it.
I agree with Amy. It would be nice to have a little bit of direction. Last time we didn't have any direction and it turned into a mess. So
Any suggestions on who you want to hear from? I suggest Matthew for sure, but
I mean, even Michael could pop an email over to you and me and Mike, like all of us. The whole
yeah, no, I
you, Michael Sarkota, whatever.
Yeah.
how you-
yeah, no,
Michael, would it be appropriate for me to make a suggestion?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Andy.
One of the things that's been helpful to the tree board, and I'm speaking as a citizen and not a tree board member, but we have Mel Friedman, the city commissioner, assigned to us, and it was my understanding that all boards and commissions have a commissioner assigned to them. And we use Mel as a sounding board for timeliness of initiatives, for gauging what is possible politically, what is a good way to stick our toe in the water of different ordinance changes and things like that. And by using our window into the commission, we've been able to prevent the feeling of them being ambushed by the board, if that makes sense. And that's been a good place for us to start.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Andy. I think, so I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads, and I'm hearing that maybe what we do is if we do have a discussion about this process, we make sure the right people at the city are there. And I'd be happy to take that on. I'll make sure that at least one commissioner is there. And then ideally, Matthew and Mr. Cardos, if he's available, or if he doesn't want to just defer to Matthew. And then that way we can really be on the same page. So maybe if I got that together for our next meeting, would you want to tackle this?
I think if we got those people together for the next meeting, it would be a good meeting where we just talk about process for planning a conservation or a climate action plan. Like, how does the city commission want it to go? How does public works want it to go? Like, how does the city, so like, how does the city manager want it to go? So then we know that we're at least starting on the right track. So I think that would be good to sort of have a process meeting with the people who will be involved in the process.
Alexis, do you think that we have, I often feel pretty, this is my character, I often feel pretty uncomfortable going into meetings like that without at least an idea of my input into that. So I do quite a bit of research beforehand. I think this is an opportunity for both you and Lindsay maybe to hit the ground running, because I think that if we could have that discussion, maybe not next month, but maybe the month after, and show up with the primary goal of the meeting is to get that initial feedback. But if we do get into a kind of a deep process discussion, that we're at least showing up with what other cities have done, you know, I mean, we're not the first ones to do this by any means. As a process suggestion, especially, you know, Matt definitely made a couple of good process suggestions that I think we'd already want to bring to the table. Maybe we could do that. So what do y'all think about that? So do it in 2 months and then have maybe Alexis, you and Lindsay between now and then spend time off board, you know, emailing each other, collaborating a little bit on just these are some of the key elements of the climate action plan implementation that some of these other cities have done, you know, Alexis from your Energy Corps and Lindsay from your other research. What do y'all think of that?
I think that makes sense, but
Yeah, I think that I'm happy to do some research, make a few calls, and so the primary goal is not necessarily content of plans, but the process of how the planning happens.
Yep.
Unless, are we, maybe Matt could weigh in, but like, are we stepping too far into what the city's role is at that point? Because I mean, it kind of feels like the city should write the climate action plan and we should advise on it. But maybe we're talking about advising first, they write it, then we advise again.
Yeah, actually, good.
Yeah, I'm a little, why are we had like a list of suggestions we wanted to make to the city. What happened? Do we not still have that list that we wanted to provide? Or
That was for the growth policy, or yeah, growth. What was it called? We never had did we have a list for the climate? Because under our,
this is the first time I've heard of the climate action plan, to be honest.
well, so Montana state released the Montana Climate Solutions Plan in August of 2020. And I think that's when we started talking about this, right?
Yep.
And Livingston wants to develop a climate action plan.
Okay.
Correct? Like,
yep.
That came from them.
Okay.
So I don't think we've done anything on this topic yet, other than say we were going to address it.
So are we scrapping our 2-year schedule that we had written?
No.
Okay, that's good. Just checking in.
No, that's a good question, Danielle. And again, like, and Amy, to your point, this isn't, listen, we're not going to do, I think we all are very sensitive to biting off more than we can chew. Right. So what I was suggesting is that we just have a meeting at some point that's a listening session where we make sure that we have a commissioner or two. I'd actually, now that we're talking about it, I think I'd prefer a couple of commissioners and then whoever from the city is relevant for this.
Just ask them what our involvement will be in this.
Yeah, and we can talk about their expectations and how this process can go. But as an advisory board, the thought was that we do, I'm not talking about like a ton of extracurricular here. I'm talking about, here are 3 different cities in the process that they use to implement a climate action plan. That's the only pre-research we do. We don't show up with a big sweeping example, but it's unlikely that frankly, it's unlikely that they will have done that research.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an advisory resource to the city, I think that's something we can uniquely do before the meeting.
Okay, that sounds clear, which is what I was trying to get at, so.
I think that'd be very wise because it'll save you a lot of time on the back end if you figure out how you're going to work together. And the ones that I've been involved in and seen, like in Helena and Bozeman and Red Lodge, they have someone like you were saying Matthew, I think, is the city planner there, correct?
Yeah, he's the deputy city planner. But
So typically someone like him would be the Citizen Conservation Board sponsor, if you will. And so whatever data you guys need as you start to look into the climate plan, you'll probably need some energy data and emissions data from whatever fleet of vehicles they have and all this sort of stuff. And you're not going to get that without someone within the city who can get that information for you.
Oh,
And
sure.
then you'll advise the commissioners will vote on a motion to move something forward, and then the city manager will be the one implementing that, probably circling back to the planner in order to be the one implementing the plan and, making budget appropriations, things like that.
Real quick, just to clarify, there is a baseline emissions report for the city of Livingston and for Park County with emissions from all the city operations. I was an energy corps person, that was my job. That does
Excellent.
exist. So we do have a baseline, which will save us a bunch of time. I don't actually know if it's been published yet because it took a long time in the comments. It does exist. I have it in my Google Drive, but
We have it too.
yeah, so it does exist. So hopefully that saves us some time.
Yeah, I know it will, Alexis. I think that's, and one of the outputs of this is it's a project plan, guys. Like we're going to make a recommendation. We're going to put a project plan together, or they're going to put it together. We're going to provide input, but we're going to ultimately check and make sure that it's something that's actually going to get done. And if it's not, then we'll say, boy, it doesn't look like this can be resourced properly to get it done. Right. Okay, so I think I'm pretty clear on what that is and I'm going to peg that for our March meeting, if that's okay. Does everyone?
Yeah, I think that's smart because it's almost February already. So
Yeah. So February 10th. Does anybody want to hear about EVs?
I know that you really want to tell us about them, so I think you should do it.
I have to tell you, I'm not going to be able to make February 10th, but I want to hear about your EVs.
Well, if only we had a YouTube channel that you could go back and watch the meeting on.
Oh, there's that.
Or we could send out or change the date.
Yeah, we
Crazy
could.
thoughts here.
So my thought on the reason, Amy, the reason I'm bringing up EVs is it's definitely something that the commission has mentioned and is on the strategic plan. That's totally in our purview.
Mhm.
There are, I think there's some really good things happening around the state, and I just have kind of a unique pulse on that stuff because I'm a nerd about it. That I'd like to bring to y'all so you kind of know where that is. And then, so I was thinking I might just go ahead and do that presentation because I know y'all love to hear me talk more. And then do sort of an overview of some of the things I think we might be able to tackle as an advisory board on how the city can address some of the future needs of electric vehicles in our community. Do you want me to put that together for our next meeting? I don't know if there will be any resolutions coming from it. It would just likely be a review meeting.
I think there's some good plans in there that you have. I mean, I know you're part of your plan. I guess we've talked about it, but the EVs they're coming. I mean, I was just looking for a new car, and I mean they're everywhere. So I'd like to hear it.
Mhm.
That's just
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting.
Right.
Good.
All right, I'm putting it on there. I'm doing it.
And Livingston's in a unique situation, being a gateway community to the national parks. I think that really drives the importance of that EV initiative, and probably also your dark skies as well, as high priorities given one of the gateway communities to Yellowstone.
Right, Matt, you're speaking my language. You should come to the presentation. It's going to be great. This has been a thing in the back, just in the back pocket. because I've got a presentation that's specific to Livingston, and I can.
Pull up our schedule. I don't know how revised it is, but don't we have the letter to the board that what we were planning on doing
Yeah.
next?
Yeah. That was, I think was I just sharing that, or was I not sharing that?
Yeah, it was something else. It was about the climate thing, climate action.
Yeah, this was our priorities and project lists and priorities thing. Here.
There we go.
So this was the one on the right is from last year. The one on the left is the one I've started updating. Yeah, and you can tell, I mean, some of the timeframes we had in here, you know, we're going into 2021, but a lot of this stuff we just didn't get to. And nothing, we had nothing in here really that captured how much time we spent on that growth policy stuff. So
Michael, how long will your whole presentation be? Like, is it a full meeting or?
it's 30 minutes maybe.
Okay. I'm wondering if we have that and then do, well, I guess it depends on how long people want the meeting tonight to go, but it's already 6:30. So maybe we could add on to the end of that agenda, like a discussion about what all the members want to talk about going forward.
Yep.
I mean, I know that's what we're doing right now, but I feel like we could get in the weeds here.
Yeah, that's great. So,
because some of the stuff might have changed since our members have changed. So
yeah, no problem. I think that's a great thing to add to the agenda.
Hear Alexis and Lindsay want to add.
yeah.
And also maybe next week we can open up public comment to what they want to see us talk about for the climate action plan. Maybe a little public comment in the beginning. I don't know if we're going to get any public comment, but it's always nice to schedule it if somebody wants to come in and talk to us.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Danielle. I'd very much like public comment to be highly encouraged for the March 10th meeting on the climate and energy action plan specifically. And then, but I'd also like to solicit public comment for the broad agenda one. So yeah, I like that point. I think we've got 2 meetings coming up that several people in the public would probably be pretty interested in.
Michael, I wanted to check in about the board's like general practice. I'm traveling March 10th, which obviously doesn't happen often for any of us these days, but I'm going to be out of state, and so I just wanted to check in if it's common practice to like ever reschedule, or if I could just give my report to Alexis to share, or how we want to do that.
I think because you're working with Alexis on that, your presence in that conversation would be pretty important. So we're pretty fluid. I mean, we have Doodle. It's completely in our power to reschedule meetings for whenever we want. So if you'd like me to send out a Doodle to try to find a more, a better March meeting time, we can do that.
Excellent. I'll send you the dates I'm traveling by email here. Thank you.
You bet.
Do you want to do that for February too?
No, I can probably do February.
We'll all be gone, but
I just meant because Danielle
will be gone.
I
Sure.
don't know what you mean.
How about, since we got 2 months of that, what's the, I know it'll just save a bunch of emails. Is everyone available, say the 17th of February and the 17th of March?
definitely not the 17th of March.
You mean St. Patrick's Day?
I'll be taking my PE on St. Patty's Day.
Oh, great. Congratulations. Holy smokes. All right. So then you'll be certainly bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready on the 18th of March.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Lindsay, when are you leaving? Are you leaving that whole week, the 8th through the 12th?
10th through the 16th.
So we could do Tuesdays.
Let's, okay, yeah, let's try Tuesdays then.
If that works for everybody.
So that would be the third Tuesday of both of those months.
So the 16th and and wait, 16th and 16th? I don't know why that's confusing me. That works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, if my flight's delayed or something, it might still be a problem in March. It's an afternoon flight, so I don't know. Sorry.
No, that's okay. How about we? It truly doesn't matter, guys.
Would you like me to send out the doodle poll?
Yeah, why don't we do dual poll? I also prefer, Amy, now that it occurs to me that because this is a public forum, we don't really need to get into all of our personal schedules. So we'll resolve to figure that out over a separate email. This kind of discussion is the only thing that we don't discuss using our message boards.
Recorded, right.
So
Sorry, my computer died. I'm
no
back.
problem. I think we're wrapping up. So the meeting dates themselves are up in the air, but we'll just doodle for that off. But the content is we'll have for our next meeting, we'll do the EV presentation and a broad agenda discussion. So, come Lindsay and Alexis with anything new you want to add to the priority list, and truly anything, right? Let's just whatever. And I would also say bonus. We're all board members here. We're here to help our city and do all that stuff. But I'd also like for you to consider things that would help you professionally, if it's a certain type of role in a project or something like that. We tend to get, if there's a Venn diagram between the things you want to do and need to do professionally and the things that we're working on, we get more free work out of all of us. So consider those topics as well. And then the next meeting after that, that'll be the Energy Climate Action Plan. But Amy, we'll need to peg those dates pretty quick, so I have some time to go, wring hands and pound on doors, make sure everybody.
I'll do the poll, set up the poll tomorrow, and I was also thinking I'll send you an email, Michael, with what I think my job is as secretary, and maybe I can take some things off of your plate.
Yeah, we'll divvy up the tasks separately, Amy. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, so what we can do then is, for now, I don't think we should adopt this whole plan yet, but can I just by resolution for the next two meetings, we've got, I make a motion that we have EV presentation and a broad agenda discussion next meeting. And then the following meeting is the listening session for the Energy Climate Action Plan, the meta plan.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? It's Amy.
Aye.
Okay. I see raised hand with Lindsay. I see an aye for Danielle. Alexis?
Aye.
And I say aye. Okay, so that passes. Okay, we're done, guys. I think we've hit all of our firsts. Alexis and Lindsay, welcome to being in service to your small town via an advisory board. Thank you for being here. We are so happy.
Yes, welcome. We're happy to have you.
Just go, binge watch Parks and Rec, and you'll really understand what next year will be like. Next 2 years.
Oh, man.
Okay. Anything else before we motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
A second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt, for your input. Really appreciate
Nice
it.
to meet you, Lindsay.
See you guys. Take
Bye,
care.
you guys.
Ah.